And then going against Deion, he was the best defensive back in the league, right? I mean, it made me better because I had to go against the best DB in the league in practice every day. And so I figured if I can get open against Deion, I can get open against anybody.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos and Bourbon. I am your host, Phil Milani. A very special guest this week on the show as Ed McCaffrey joins the program. We've been trying to get Ed on here for a couple of months now, but he's just so busy doing so many different things. He has a radio program on Sirius Radio. He's got his Ed McCaffrey Brands, which we get into here with this conversation. If you live in Colorado, if you go into like a King Soopers here, you'll see Ed McCaffrey's face in the condiment aisle all over. So we get an update on what's going on with that. And then, of course, he's a football dad. And, Christian and Luke McCaffrey playing in the NFL. He talks about that. And obviously, Luke had this long run, deep into the playoffs with Washington. So we get into that. He obviously keeps close tabs on what's happening with the Broncos. So we talk a little bit about the Broncos and what happened with, Bo Nix's rookie year and where he thinks that this program is heading. So a really great conversation here with Ed McCaffrey, who I think should be in the Broncos Ring of Fame. We'll get into that too. But, definitely I think that his career, he's one of the greats. When you think about, these teams here behind me, you think about those teams, you think about, Ed McCaffrey playing such a huge role there. So we get into all of it. We talk about his career, the rough start that he had into the NFL and like sort of an unlikely journey, talking about, what happened with the Giants, all the turnover that happened early in his career there. And then he goes to San Francisco just for a year, makes that team somehow, and then has this tremendous career with the Broncos. So really hope that you enjoy this conversation with an all-time Broncos great, Ed McCaffrey. Ed, thank you for taking some time to join the program. I know you're a very busy guy. How you been?
I've been great. Thank you. How about yourself, Phil?
Doing well. I know that one of the things you're really busy with is, the Ed McCaffrey mustard brand and all the other food products that you have going on. How's that been?
It's been great. We've had a lot of fun. We've been selling our mustard and horseradish sauces since 1998. So back when we were winning Super Bowl 32 and 33, and we have a loyal fan base, and it's a phenomenal product, which is why people keep buying it even this many years later. We're expanding our brand. We're going to add sriracha and smoky horseradish in the fall, and we're going to have some specialty products like a beer mustard during October and a cranberry horseradish during the holidays. So we have big plans for our mustard and horseradish products in 2025. And then last week we launched our McCaffrey Brands protein bites. I got to get you some. We completely sold out, and I don't even have any in the house to display because we sold out and we gave them all away out at the Super Bowl. But we had 100% satisfaction. Every single person who tried them loved them. Nice. And I'm really excited about it. It's my first national brand. Okay. And I want it so badly to create a product that tastes great, but is healthy. And it's so hard to do because you can have healthy products that taste like cardboard or the sole of your shoe, or you have great tasting products that aren't that good for you. And there's very few that actually taste great and are also healthy. So ours are non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, kosher, the whole deal, and they have a good amount of protein in them, and they're designed really for snacks between your three main meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mm-hmm. You get starving before lunch and dinner and you need a little bit of a snack, but you don't want to eat a whole meal or something at night. Or, for athletes, it's pregame, halftime, or postgame snack, and it's something for everybody. So youth league athletes can eat it as a snack during their games or tournaments, and mom and dad can eat it in the car while they're driving them around to practice, or a student could keep it in their backpack. But our flavors are chocolate chip cookie dough, fudge brownie, and birthday cake. So I went with what I thought were the most delicious flavors that we could possibly come up with. And I love them, and I'm so glad that everyone else loves them. I'm kind of humbled that it got such a great response and reaction from the people out in New Orleans. and we're excited about it. But that'll be our first national brand, and when I get you some, I'd love to hear what you think about them as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah. You'll have to send me some. I definitely want to check those out because, for a lot of people watching, like they don't know, if you head into like a King Supers here in Colorado, right there in the condiments aisle, you always saw the Ed McCaffrey brand stuff. So, how'd you get into that? Was that something that like you were passionate about, or was it just a business opportunity?
Yeah, well, in the '90s, it started out as just a business opportunity. My good friend Ty, ran a company that did that for other athletes. So they did Elway Crunch and Flutie Flakes, and he's worked in the past with lots of other pro athletes in all different sports, even some musicians. And I had Ed's End Zone O's. Do you remember the
Oh
cereal?
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
mostly cereals, but that was a huge success. And then we had Eddie Mac and Cheese. I don't know if you remember that.
Naturally.
But the key to long-term success is having a phenomenal product. So our manufacturer that makes our spicy brown mustard, and right now Chipotle, and we have a horseradish sauce as well, and we launched yellow. Those products are phenomenal products. Like I would put them up against any competitor in the world, any spicy brown mustard in the world. And so now, like some people refer to me as Christian's dad or Luke's dad, or the mustard guy, because that's how they know me, because mom or dad has the mustard
Who
in
would
the
have
fridge.
thought, huh, Ed?
But they, originally you'll buy some cereal, even if it's not the most healthy cereal, or even if it's not the best tasting. You'll buy it when an athlete's on there because you want an autograph or it's a novelty. But you don't buy products for 25 years for that reason. You buy them because they're great products. And so I stand behind our brand. And but my friend Ty got me involved in the food products industry, and I've learned so much from him over the last 25 years. But I've done other things. I've been coaching. I broadcast Broncos games. I
Yeah.
did so many other different things, and Ty really helped me run the business, and he did most of the legwork. But mustard came about because he asked me what foods I ate every day. And I'm like, I eat really healthy. I was really a little OCD about my weight because I'm naturally a bigger person. And I tried to play it around 220, 225. And I was heavier than that in high school. So I was always managing my weight. So I'm eating like super lean turkey, eating turkey sandwiches every day, chicken, really lean proteins and very few calories, and tracking every gram of protein, carbohydrate, and fat that I would consume, and monitor my liquids as well, and was taking supplements to try to play at a pro level. And so a lot of times when you eat that healthy food, Phil, it doesn't taste good, or you get really tired of it. It's like, man, this is how
Chicken
many
again.
days in a row
Yeah.
can you eat a turkey sandwich and still look forward to that turkey sandwich? So you want to add flavor to it. So our goal was to make good food taste better, or to make healthy food taste better. That was the goal with the condiment line. And I went to high school in Allentown, Pennsylvania. There's a German and Dutch influence, and there's a lot of really good spices. A lot of good mustard companies are from the state of Pennsylvania, and so I used to dip pretzels in it and put it on everything that I ate back when I was in high school. So I'm like, well, that's something I eat every day. And I was almost being facetious, like, okay, you're not going to make mustard, right? We're not going to. We have cereal. I get that. It's a cool graphic, but mustard, it seemed kind of random. And if you remember, Adam Denmarsh was playing for the Avalanche.
Oh yeah.
And he launched a product with Adam as well called Denmarsh Dills, and it was pickles.
Pickles.
That was even more bizarre. So mine was less bizarre than the pickles, but I use it every day. Like our spicy brown mustard, or over the years we've had honey and Dijon and all different brands, where we can fill niche markets like sriracha based on demographics. We fill niche markets for Kroger, but they've been in our refrigerator every day since 1998, and we use them every day, and they're delicious. So,
Awesome.
Mustard stays in your fridge pretty long unless you're
Yeah.
having a tailgate or a picnic, right? It could last for a while, but it's been there every day since 1998. I'm so proud of that product, but that's how it came about. But, I must have taste tested hundreds of different combinations of ingredients before I settled on one that I thought was the best tasting to me. So it's really a personal taste regarding how hot the mustard seeds are going to be, how distilled it is with vinegar, the amount of turmeric and other really cool ingredients that you add to the mustard. But we found really great mustard makers at a bunch of different manufacturing companies, and we let them compete for our business. But the company we settled on is just a phenomenal company that has, their family's been making mustard for 100 years, Phil.
Wow.
And they really know what they're doing. And I was so happy they helped me craft a flavor profile that I thought was delicious, and luckily a lot of other people feel the same way.
Well, I can tell you're passionate about it. It's not just your face on there. I know it sounds like you're really involved in it. And man, a lot of guys on that team got into the food business, right? Stinks got his green chili, and Rod had some coffee, right, for a while there. So
TD had a barbecue sauce for a while.
yeah, yeah,
And what's cool is like in the past, there's a lot of athletes that might launch a product that is like a one and done or a one hit wonder. It's not really what they want to do with their life, but it's a way. It's a fun way to make money and give fans something to buy that they're excited about. But Stink has really worked a long time selling his green chili, and he came up with a great recipe with his business partner. A lot of the other athletes, it's kind of one and done. Rod had a business which sold coffee. I think he still might.
Okay, he might. Yeah, I'm not sure.
And so those guys put some time and effort into it. And that's, I'm taking up a notch as well. About a year ago, we had to change our business structure. And, I started McCaffrey Brands. Before, we were a different company, but we had to restructure. And so I started McCaffrey Brands, developed a website. We now have a website, McCaffreybrands.com. I had to learn the business the hard way because my partner Ty had to step away for about a year, and it forced me to have to run the business, which it's time consuming, Phil. It's a lot of work,
a lot of paperwork,
and there's a lot of devil in the detail, and talking with manufacturers and your retailers and shipping and warehousing and hiring employees and you name it. So now we have a team of about 15 people, and I hired Ty back, which is such a blessing that he got his life sorted out and everything. Got put back together, and because I'm still learning from him. He's in the business for over 30 years, and but now with Ty's help, we are launching McCaffrey Protein Bites nationally, and we're going to be in Kroger as well as Dick's Sporting Goods, and Scheels, and it's not finalized yet, but a whole lot of other workout facilities that are pretty popular that serve health food products. And we're just incredibly excited about it. And we're not going to stop with protein bites. Like, this is kind of my calling. It's what I'm doing with my life now. And I'm really enjoying it. It's fun to have a team of about 15 people that I work with every day.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats on all the success there, Ed. That's really great to hear that.
Thank you.
You mentioned Luke and Christian there. Being a football dad seems like it could also be sort of like a full-time job, especially with like Luke's team there in Washington making such an amazing run this year. I was going to ask you, like, what is it like being a football dad? I mean, I know you don't know any different, and you've been doing it for so long, but now I imagine that it must be hard getting used to like sitting in the stands and being anxious for your kid.
Yeah, I live a blessed life, Phil. I mean, because I love football. So I think most parents just want their kids to chase their dreams, whatever they are. So Lisa and I, like, originally, we never signed our kids up for football, but we weren't going to not let them play football. A lot of my teammates wouldn't let their kids play football. I did it. It was tough on my body, the anxiety, whatever. Don't want you to follow in my footsteps. I have a lot of teammates that would not let their kids play football. We agreed that we're not going to force them to play. We're not going to sign them up. But if they ask to play, we're not going to stand in the way of that. We want them to have the freedom to choose what they want to do with their lives. But there's no sitting around the house doing nothing. Like, you're either playing a sport or you're part of a club or you get a job. But you're going to be active. And whatever your dreams are, though, we're going to support them. It just so happens to be we had 4 boys, and they all fell in love with football. It started with Max, our oldest. He was 9. And, in Colorado, they start at 6. So he started 3 years after most of the kids he ended up playing with, but eventually one of his buddies convinced him to go out for the team, and he tried out. And after that, next Christian was the one to follow, and then Dylan, and then Luke. But selfishly, I love football, so it's kind of cool that they decided to do something that I love. As a parent, our role is to love them and support them, and we can't. If they ask me questions or they want to go over film, I'll do that with them, and Christian and Luke still do that quite a bit, and they're the 2 that are still playing. But I don't force my opinions on them. I don't micromanage. They have really good coaches on their teams, and if they ask for my advice, I'll give it. But I have no effect on the outcome. Like, I sit up in the stands like another fan. Like, I love them, and I'm rooting for them and their team. and you get to know the other players and their families and the coaches. So it feels like a family that you're rooting for, in addition to your own kid. But it's tough not being able to affect the outcome. Like as a player, at least you feel like through your hard work and effort and your preparation, you can affect your own personal outcome to some extent. But as a parent, you just got to sit back and let life happen and be there for them, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, I bet that's a tough transition. A lot of the guys I talk to, they're parents now, and they want their kids, to sort of follow in their footsteps. You must get asked that question a lot, like, how'd you do it? But it sounds like there was no secret.
Yeah, there was no secret. We didn't, I mean, I would have been happy if they did anything as long
Yeah.
as they're chasing their dreams, right? Their dream is not my dream. Like, whatever their dream is, chase it, and I'll be here to support you and love you and help you out in any way that I can. I think I'm lucky that I married well, Phil. I'm lucky
Yeah.
that I found Lisa because she might love football more than any of us. Yeah, and so like every now and again she'll talk about how she's outnumbered and it's all boys and all you guys do is watch football. And then every time I come home, when she's by herself and I'm coming home from a trip or from a game, I'll come back and what does she have on, Phil?
Football.
She's
Yeah.
got a football game on. Yeah, like what are you doing? It's like, well, that's one of Luke's friends. He's on this team. I'm like,
Yep.
so I'm
Yep.
really lucky that if she didn't, it might be difficult. But we go to games every weekend. Like, how fun is that?
Yeah.
We get
It's
to go to
awesome.
games, and you have a little bit of anxiety. I've really worked on that over the years to not get stressed out. I have to be there for Lisa. I have to be there for my other kids. Me being anxious is not helping my son play
Yeah.
on the field. So, I mean, every parent goes through bouts of having a little bit of that anxiety, but we get to travel to NFL football games every single week, different stadiums, live entertainment, and our son's in it. But it's a cool life.
Yeah, what an amazing ride. For you, was it weird? Like with Christian, I'm sure this happened where Christian went from being, you mentioned this earlier too, like he went from being Ed McCaffrey's son, and there must have been a point, do you remember when it transitioned to now you're Christian's dad?
Yeah, I think it's mostly an age thing. Like anyone, I used to say 25, it might be 30 now, Phil. Anyone younger than 30 probably wouldn't remember when I played unless their parents told them about me. So, as I get older and the old Broncos fans of the 90s get older, fewer and few people remember those days other than reading about them or seeing highlights or their parents telling them about them. So, Christian was always a pretty good football player. And obviously, they won 4 straight state championships in high school, and he was already getting heavily recruited and was an All-American. So, soon after that, maybe then he went to college and they won the Rose Bowl, and he got a lot of fame there. So with the younger generation, it probably started around high school, college, and now every year, more and more people would think of me as his dad.
That's crazy. What a transformation. Well, let me ask you about your career a little bit because you were drafted by Bill Parcells, right? But you never actually played for him.
Yeah, he drafted me, and then I guess he had a heart problem, and I was there for a mini camp and got to sit in a meeting room with him and have him address the team and all the rookies. And then he stepped away. And so they had just won that Super Bowl the year before. They beat the Buffalo Bills. That was Bill Belichick's defense. He was the defensive coordinator, Bill Parcells' offense. That's when they were the oldest team in the league. I think the average age was 33 or 34. They had Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks and Phil Simms. I was in 7th grade when Phil Simms broke into the NFL, and all of a sudden I'm playing with a guy that I watched when I was in 7th grade.
That's
And
crazy.
it was pretty crazy, but they were a great team. They were getting older. The head coach stepped down. Then, if you remember, Jeff Hostetler quarterbacked that Super Bowl because Phil had gotten hurt. So, 2 quarterbacks who had won Super Bowls were on the team, but we lost our head coach, and then it was a little bit of a quarterback battle. And so, my philosophy is if you have your head coach locked down and you have your quarterback locked down, you give your team a chance to win and have success. When you lose your coach and now there's a quarterback battle or you don't have the right answer for that position, it makes it more difficult. And so we went through that transition of new coach, new quarterback, and a lot of the older players started retiring or they were letting them go in the last year or two of their careers. And we went through a big time transition. So, Ray Handley came in. He was a Stanford guy and really smart coach, but he inherited the team at a bad time when they were losing a lot of talented players. And we went from 8-8 to 6-10, and then Dan Reeves was hired. So really, when you look at it, it was, maybe 5 different quarterbacks in my first 3 years and 3 different head coaches in 3 years. And, every team that you see that goes through that transition struggles. They lose players, they bring in new players, they try to rebuild. And so I was, I had a pretty successful career starting out. My first year, I want to say I had 16 catches. Doesn't sound like a lot, right? But can you guess how many the year before, the year the New York Football Giants won the Super Bowl? Can you guess how many receptions the leading wide receiver had on the team for the season?
35.
That was a great guess. 26.
26.
But that was a great guess.
Wow.
So 16 catches relative to the leading wide receiver the year before with 26 is not bad. So I was playing, is what I'm saying. I was playing special, getting in, and getting on a team like that just won the Super Bowl. That was a veteran team. It was kind of cool for me to play with those players. The next year, led the team in receiving, and so I'm thinking, okay, this is great. Led the team in receiving. In my third year, I had all these goals I was writing down. How players do.
Yep.
And I was getting ready to have a great year. But then, Dan Reeves did come in, and I know he's a Broncos legend. And, before I even talk any further, he did pay me one of the greatest compliments ever before Super Bowl 33, saying, that was the biggest mistake I ever made, was cutting Ed. But I did get cut after that season. I was put demoted, made a backup, and then was cut at the end of the year right before training camp. So it was a tumultuous start for me in my NFL career. Different coaches, quarterbacks, and then eventually got cut after my third season.
Wow. It's crazy to hear some of these stories and like how much has to go right to make an NFL career possible. I mean, like, you're a great player coming out, but like so much of the circumstances around these guys really determines, what kind of career they can go on to have. And I mean, you found a way to overcome that.
Yeah, just resilience, believing in yourself. And, I started forgetting about tomorrow or, not concerning myself with yesterday and just living for today and living for the moment. So I went out, I made a very intentional decision to try out for the San Francisco 49ers. After I got cut, I maybe had 5 or 6 teams that were interested. One of them was the Chiefs. One was Washington, interestingly enough. But I decided I really want to play for a team that I believe can win a Super Bowl. At that point, no matter what happens, no matter how much playing time I get, I want to be on a Super Bowl championship football team. That was a dream of mine. And the 49ers were one team that I believed had a chance to win a Super Bowl. They had gotten close and lost to Dallas a couple times in the NFC Championship game, but they were in the Bay Area. I had gone to Stanford. I loved the Bay Area. I was a 49ers fan when I was out there. I knew their team, and I knew they had a chance to win. And so I tried out for the San Francisco 49ers. But they had 14 receivers in camp. They only kept 4, which is very unusual. Normally a team will keep 6. They only keep 4. And all 4 of them that were on the team the year before were in training camp, and 2 of them were Jerry Rice and John Taylor, who had won multiple Super Bowls. So really I was trying out for 2 spots with 14 other receivers or 12 other receivers. And but I felt confident and I wanted to make the team. But at one point I sprained my ankle really bad. And I was walking out to practice in Rockland, California. It was like 122 degrees. We're going out to our afternoon practice, and my ankle's swollen up. And at one point, I had to ask George Seifert to move me out of the room with all the bunk beds and all the other receivers that he had squashed into one room. Thought I was going to get cut in that moment, but he gave me my own room because William Barnum Floyd was holding out. So, like, I already had to meet with the head coach. Thought I was going to get cut, didn't get cut. Sprained my ankle. I'm competing with all these receivers. I know 2 of them are already on the team. I have to go against Deion Sanders every single day in practice, right? And he ended up being Defensive Player of the Year. Steve Young on our team was Offensive Player of the Year and Super Bowl MVP. But I'm backing up Jerry Rice. I have a sprained ankle. All the receivers are back from last year. So, not all of them were probably fans of mine to make the team. I have to compete against Deion Sanders every day. And I remember walking out to practice and I just started laughing, Phil. I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. Like, okay, I don't even care anymore. Forget making the team. Forget making the team. I just want to win today. I just want to beat Deion on one slant route. This is what I'm thinking as I'm going out to practice. And if I do, I'll tell my son Max about it, who was 2 months old at the time. I'll tell him about that story for the rest of his life. And, because that was tough. I had to leave New York. We just moved into a new apartment. I just had a 2-month-old son, and I had to just go try to make a team. But I think in that moment, it was like a flashpoint. In my career, I instantly became a better receiver. I stood up taller, walked straighter, I smiled, and I didn't worry about making the team. I didn't worry about anything. I'm like, I'm just going to go out and play football and have fun as long as this career lasts. And for the rest of my career, I was better having that attitude.
Just
And
that
so
narrow focus. Yeah.
it was such a great decision. And I didn't play it a ton. I did have a catch in the Super Bowl, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't, Jerry Rice never came off the field. So it was hard to get in the game. He did come out during the Super Bowl. He hurt his shoulder and I got in, had a quick catch. And I'm thinking, I'm going to Disney World. This is awesome. But then he came back in the game because he's a tough dude. But it was a great year. And some of my teammates are like lifelong friends. I was only there 7 months total. But I made so many wonderful friends, and the organization was so cool to me. And now when I go back to watch Christian play, it's like a reunion. I see guys that I played with and won a Super Bowl with every time I go out to a game, and it's I couldn't even have written that script. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator, right? And Gary Kubiak was the quarterback's coach. So those guys, along with Bobby T and a bunch of other coaches, migrated over to the Denver Broncos. Mike Shanahan took that head coaching job, and he offered me a chance to compete for a position and a starting position on the Broncos. And I didn't become a starter right away, but luckily I worked really hard and earned that designation.
So did you ever catch a pass on Deion then?
Yeah, I did on that day. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, Deion was a phenomenal teammate, by the way. He was a super hard worker and a phenomenal teammate. I really enjoyed playing with him. And I think, backing up Jerry and learning from him, and just watching the way he ran his routes and copying some of the things that he did, I think it helped me see a veteran receiver who was already considered one of the greatest of all time, helped me to see what he did and feel comfortable copying what he was doing and in incorporating that into my route running. And then going against Deion, he was the best defensive back in the league, right? I mean, it made me better because I had to go against the best DB in the league in practice every day. And so I figured if I can get open against Deion, I can get open against anybody.
Were Jerry's workouts like as legendary as like sort of the aura around them? Like, everybody's heard about these crazy Jerry Rice workouts. I mean, are the rumors true?
Yeah, his conditioning was off the charts. Off the charts. He wasn't the fastest receiver in the league. He wasn't the biggest receiver in the league, but he was fast and he had good size. But to me, there's a couple of things he did better than anybody. One, I think he was in the best condition of anybody. Like, he did not slow down at all from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. And most of his conditioning happened during the offseason, so I wasn't really there for that. But he had this legendary hill run that he did where he ran uphill for a mile or whatever it was, and he would always invite players to do it, and it was supposedly a bear of a workout. But his conditioning was as good as I've ever seen of any NFL football player ever. He also was incredibly quick at getting off the line of scrimmage. So he took pride in being the first one off the ball. So, for instance, if you're a 4-5 guy and you're racing a 4-2 guy, if you start first, you get to 5 yards quicker than the 4-2 guy. And so he was so fast off the ball. I don't care what your 40-yard dash was. He would beat you to 5 yards every time. So I started trying to do that. And we had a team takeoff drill when I got to Denver, where Shannon and Rod and I would, in the beginning of practice, we'd do this team takeoff deal, and we would try as hard as we possibly could to be the fastest player to 5 yards, and we'd look at it on the film. And it seemed like a simple team takeoff drill where you just snap the ball and jog down the field, but we took that seriously. Like, we really tried to get off the ball quickly. And then the third thing I think that separated Jerry from other receivers is his ability to run through the catch. So the quarterback throws the ball. It might not be a perfect ball, but you somehow manage to contort your body or your hands in a way where you catch it and don't slow down. So he would be able to catch a shallow cross, which is a little 4 to 6 yard crossing route, catch it either in stride or without turning his body, catch it with his hands, and then turn up field immediately. So again, that turns a 4-5 guy into a 4-2 guy, and it causes the defense to take bad angles. Those three things, and I'm including like a lot of idiosyncrasies I learned from his route running. Those three things, which are things that I think separated him from other players that you might have argued had similar ability.
Yeah. I've talked to Steve about it, in the Super Bowl a few years before that, I think 89, and like Jerry just like bounced off Steve Atwater. And Steve, you just don't think of Jerry like that, but he had these little things about him that just made him such a great football player, huh?
Yeah, he was tough too. He's a tough player. He played at the end of his career because, people like to try to argue who the greatest of all time is. I mean, if you use the word accomplished, who's the most accomplished player of all time? It's Jerry Rice, and there's nobody close.
Yeah.
But like, to be the most accomplished, like, people don't always think of the sacrifices he made at the end of his career. He blew out his ACL. He had a couple of injuries. He fought back after he was already a Hall of Famer. You're already a Hall of Famer, and you play another 5 or 6 seasons after ACL surgery. Okay, most players wouldn't do that, but he did it. So you can't take that away from him. If you wanted to do it, then you should have done it, right? But he did it, and that's why I use the word accomplished, meaning most catches, most touchdowns, whatever, most yards, whatever metric you're using. He is the most accomplished wide receiver of all time. And he had some of the greatest individual seasons, some of the greatest individual games. But also, when you look at most accomplished throughout a career, you have to look at the entire career. And for him to play 20 years as a wide receiver after having surgeries late in his career, that just shows you, one, how tough he was and how competitive he was. He played till he absolutely couldn't play anymore.
Yeah. Even came into Denver for a little, cup of coffee there. So, people forget that, So, you, of course, come to Denver and you win the Super Bowls and have this amazing career. I'm interested, like one of the, your trademarks was your blocking ability. When you watch the game nowadays, you don't see that kind of same blocking from the wide receiver position. I'm curious, why do you think that transition happened, or do you still see some guys that do it like you did?
There's a few receivers in the league who really take pride in their blocking, and they have my utmost respect. I see them. I see their work ethic. Juwan Jennings is one of them for the 49ers. He absolutely gets after it. I love watching him in the run game. He doesn't even need to catch a pass for me to respect his game. And there's other receivers like that around the league, but there are far too many, Phil, that just don't care enough about it, right? They'd rather show that they tried, but they don't quite get there to dig out that safety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your average fan might not notice it. Oh, he looked like he tried. And a trained eye would say, oh no, he could have gotten the block and he didn't. Why? Because he didn't want it bad enough. Probably because he doesn't care if it's 2nd and 8. And then they throw the ball on 2nd down. So I've seen the same receiver miss a block on 1st down, catch a pass on 2nd. And I'm like, unbelievable that you can. But that's up to the coaches to hold those guys responsible. Coaches who care about the run game, coaches who care about wide receivers that are willing to do whatever it takes to win, wouldn't allow their receivers to miss blocks and then throw them the ball in the next play. So I get it. The game has changed. Teams pass a whole lot more than when I played, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Teams are going to continue to throw the ball. But even if you look at the Super Bowl, like the ability to run the football, the ability to have players that are receivers who are willing to block in the run game, that stuff matters. And a lot of coaches will say the run game starts with the receivers.
Yeah.
And why is that, right? Well, obviously the offensive line has to block. That's their job, right? The fullback has to block. The tight ends. Some tight ends are like receivers, by the way. Not all tight ends block very well either. But the ones that do, like I'll use George Kittle as an example because he gets after it in the run game. Those guys kind of have to do that. Receivers, there's a lot of voluntary blockers at the receiver position. Like I'd say half the teams have receivers who aren't really willing blockers. They'll get in the way or they'll try every now and again, but they're not really committing to blocking in the run game. But how many long touchdowns do you see where the running back gets to the line of scrimmage and maybe he's 10, 15 yards down the field and a receiver is the guy that makes the last block that springs him for a 60-yard touchdown? Or the opposite happens where the receiver misses his block and a running back's tackled at 15 yards and everyone's like, oh, that's a great run. And I'm thinking, no, that should have been a touchdown. The receiver was slacking off on the block. And so, but that's a coaching decision. I think a lot of coaches are willing to have receivers that don't block. They allow it to happen. If you're not coaching it right, you're allowing it to happen. And it's because maybe they're really talented receivers and it's a price they're willing to pay. But I used to take pride in not having our running back get hit, right? Like if a receiver misses a block, your teammate gets hit, right? And so I didn't want TD getting hit. I didn't want any of our running backs getting hit. So I took pride, and Rod did too, and we took a lot of pride in the run game and protecting our teammates.
Yeah, that's the Shanahan way. It sounds like it's there in San Francisco too now. And Saquon Barkley broke TD's record for the most yards regular season and playoffs. So that was a record that stood for a very, very long time. I'm curious, with today's game, what would you see from the Broncos this year? I mean, it seemed like they surprised a lot of folks, and they snuck in the playoffs there, and it seems like things are heading in the right direction.
I think things are definitely headed in the right direction for the Broncos. We got to the playoffs for the first time since 2015. The last playoff game before this year was in Super Bowl 50 when we won and beat the Carolina Panthers. And it had been a long drought, second or third longest drought in the NFL. And I know that Kansas City rested their starters the last game of the season, but I don't care. Like, to be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs to get to the playoffs for the first time in a long time is a step in the right direction. And we should have beaten the Chiefs earlier in the year.
Yeah.
That blocked field goal, made me sick, but it happened. So we played a team that got to the Super Bowl that's been in 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, pretty close, and had a chance to beat them. We talk about the coach. I think we have the right coach. He's a disciplinarian. He's a tough coach, right? I like tough coaches, but I think he's the right coach for the job. And the next is the quarterback. And I think we got the quarterback in Bo Nix. I thought he got better and better as the year went on. He's running the offense the way Sean Payton wants him to run the offense. So he's not taking sacks. That was a big point of contention. I think he only got sacked 34 times or something. He was one of the fewest sack quarterbacks in the league. That was important because Sean Payton doesn't want to get off track. He tried to mix in a good combination of runs and in the quick passing game. But then as the year went on, he took some shots down the field and hit some big plays. And so I think we turned a corner. And I think we're going to be more competitive within our division. The Chiefs will probably still be the favored team in our division, but I think we closed the gap.
That's important. With Sean, do you see any similarities to Shanahan, Mike Shanahan? Any sort of I've heard these things, like how Mike just liked to control every detail in the building. You hear those similar things about Sean, like both sort of offensive geniuses. Like, do you see any sort of similarities in those two?
Yeah, they have different personalities and different ways of going about things, and they have different levels of tact or how they communicate with people. But, I think the greatest coaches and the most successful coaches are often the most confident coaches, and they really believe they want to do things their way, whether it's on the field or off the field or in the building. I mean, they're very strong personalities, and they're that way because they need to be able to trust themselves. And I think they're similar in that way. Their offenses are slightly different, but they both believe in being able to run the balls and have balance on offense. And but they pass more now, so there's more quick game concepts and concepts where you get the ball to your hand quicker, wide receiver screens and things like that. There's more of that incorporated in the offense, maybe some RPOs. We didn't really run RPOs back when I played, and the defenses have changed as well that have to try to defend the different offenses. So even Coach Payton does a lot of the same things he did in New Orleans, but he does a lot of things that are different as well. It's not the same exact offense that he ran with Drew Brees. And the best coaches, and I think he's done this as well, they try to cater the offense around their talent. So, we'll look this year at free agency, we'll look this year at the draft, and the offense may look a little different if they bring in a couple of playmakers or, if they run the ball a little more effectively early in the season, the offense might start to look different. But those decisions are made kind of in the offseason. You kind of decide how you're going to adjust your offense going into the next season based on what was successful, what worked, what didn't, and also what players you're going to add to the mix.
And with Bo, such a tremendous rookie season, how does he avoid that second year slump, that sophomore slump? Because I was thinking back, when you were playing, you went through that change, when John Elway left, Brian Griese came in, they're playing for a younger guy. What is that? How does he continue the momentum that he had this year into next year for Bo?
Well, he's a student of the game. He's always learning. He had 5 years of college experience. So I think that's a trend with NIL now and players getting paid a lot of money to stay in college. We're going to see more players with years of experience and less players that started for 1 year in college. And that's going to get them more ready to play in the NFL simply by having more reps and more experience. And they're actually older. Instead of a 20-year-old QB, it could be a 23-year-old QB, right? So Bo's in that class of quarterbacks that has a lot of experience. He had a really good rookie year. I think he was more prepared than most rookie quarterbacks. And so I don't even think of it as a rookie year almost. I know it was his first year and he was a rookie, but because of his experience and how ready he was to start the season, I don't think there's a slump. I think, he played on a team in college that went to bowl games, and played an extended season. So I don't even think the season was long for him. I think he's ready to go. Getting more used to the system, getting more used to your teammates will help you to improve. So, in addition to having your head coach and your quarterback, having consistency with what you're doing, I think is really important. So a lot of mistakes he made this year, he won't make again, but he had to make them to learn from them. So
Yeah.
he didn't make a lot, but there's a few balls he'd like to have back, especially early in the season. I think he learned a lot the first half of the season that he applied in the second. But that consistency helps, having the same playmakers around you or adding playmakers. And it's everything. It's learning to work your cadence. It's your protections. It's identifying defenses. It's noticing tells quicker. It's getting out of plays and into other plays. It's the timing with the routes of your receivers. All of that with repetition should improve.
Yeah. Exciting to just sort of see where this thing heads for him and, what's next for this team. They can add, like Sean Payton said, maybe like a joker type of player, add some, other guys on the defensive side of the ball and just sort of see where this thing keeps going here. So exciting time for the Broncos. I had just a few more here for you, Ed. With the Broncos, with in your legendary career there, do you hope that someday you look up and you're in that Ring of Fame? Is that something that you ever think about?
Oh, I don't think about it until people mention it, Phil. But I mean, it'd obviously be an incredible honor. The names up there are the Bronco greats from all time. But Broncos fans are so cool to me. Like I still live in Colorado,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about our Super Bowls or the Broncos every time I go in a grocery store, every time I go to mail a letter, and every party I go to, and people are so cool about it. And so, look, I live a blessed life. If I make it, that would be an incredible honor. If I don't, I'm kind of treated that way already. So, I'm just so blessed that I got to play for the Broncos, so blessed that I got to be part of our first Super Bowl championship teams, made lifelong friends that were teammates and coaches, and really engaged with the fan base. In fact, I've been engaging more than ever. I actually went to the tailgate before the Chiefs game this year and was cooking up brats and hamburgers and hot dogs and spread mustard all over there. And it was kind of cool to be a fan in that setting and just talk with people, hang out, and have a good time. So yeah, it'd be a huge honor, but my life's pretty cool either way.
Yeah, of course. No, I saw that you were hanging out with those fans. That was pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, anytime you're on this kind of a poster like this, I mean, that's pretty sweet. And so I definitely think you belong up there. So I'm hoping that day comes soon for you. And then hoping that a big day comes for Mike Shanahan soon too. He's got to get that knock into the Hall of Fame, don't you think?
Bill, help me. I don't have a vote. I don't know if you have a vote or not, but let's keep pounding the table.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't understand how Mike Shanahan is not already in the Hall of Fame. I think everyone agrees he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I don't even think that's up for debate, but the timing of it seems like it's taking way too long. There's other coaches that will become eligible moving forward. Guys like Bill Belichick, like he's of course going to be a Hall of Famer. And they had this bizarre rule where they would only let up to one coach be nominated per year. And so I feel like he should already be in. He's the last coach other than Bill Belichick, but before Bill Belichick was eligible, the last coach who's won two Super Bowls back to back that's not in the Hall of Fame. And when you look at his record versus coaches in the Hall of Fame, we beat a Hall of Fame coach in the AFC Championship. We beat a Hall of Fame coach in the Super Bowl. We beat so I just don't get it. But I'm with you. He's going to get in. It's a matter of when. I think the time is now. And even if the NFL has to change their rule about only one coach getting in per year, then change your rule. But the players and coaches that belong in the Hall of Fame should be in the Hall of Fame. And I don't know that it's fair to make them wait until they're in their 80s or 90s if they I mean, that's for real, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they
Yep.
deserve to be in, they should be in. Let's get Mike Shanahan in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with you. Like his resume, you can put that up against any of those guys who are in the Hall of Fame. And, you're right. Like, you want him to be able to enjoy the fact that he is in the Hall of Fame and be able to, celebrate him and do it while he's still young enough to be able to enjoy it. So 100% agree with you, and hopefully that day is coming soon there, Ed. So I like to wrap these up with just some rapid fire questions, okay?
Oh,
So
okay.
these are just a couple, okay? I know you can handle this. Okay, who was your favorite player growing up?
Man, I had a lot of favorite players, but when I was in high school, it was Harold Carmichael because I was a really tall receiver, and he was like a 6'8" receiver for the Eagles.
Okay, good one there. Okay,
Real quick, I also liked Ed Too Tall Jones because I played on a Pop Warner team called the Cowboys, and my name was Ed, and I played D end, outside linebacker. So it was Harold Carmichael in high school, and then when I was younger, it was Ed Too Tall Jones for the
Too Tall
Cowboys.
Jones. That makes sense. Okay, I love it. Who's the best guy you went up against? I mean, you mentioned Deion there earlier, but who's the best guy that you went up against in a game?
I mean, the most talented player who's the most accomplished in their career would be Deion Sanders, and I got to go against him in a game and obviously in practice for a year. The guy, and I'm not afraid to admit it, that I dreaded going up against the most was James Hasty, a defensive back for the Chiefs, because he was very strong. And most little DBs, I didn't worry about him. I could swat him away, but he was very strong, and he pressed on almost every single play. So the challenge when I went up against James Hasty was if I can get off the line of scrimmage cleanly, I have a really good chance to get open. But you had to work. He made you work on every single play. I respected that about his game, and I dreaded having to work just to get off the line of scrimmage on every single play. He made it difficult. So for me, that he was the most challenging defensive back to go against.
Yeah, so much talent in the NFL. Like, some guys, I mean, obviously you remember him, but, there's just everybody's good out there, so not just the huge, big names. And the Broncos and Chiefs battles during that time were just, I mean, you guys did some serious battling. So you also maybe already answered this, but who's the best teammate you had?
That would be unfair to all of my other teammates.
Yeah,
I loved all of my teammates. I loved all of my teammates. I'll say in the receiver room, we'll narrow it down. Rod Smith was such a phenomenal teammate, and we had so many great memories before we were able to rise to stardom. Rod came off the practice squad. I had signed from the 49ers. We were backups competing for the same position. And we developed such a great friendship because I know we were talking about blocking earlier. We cut our teeth blocking in the run game, and we'd have little side bets like $5 or $10 to see who could have the most decleaters in a game because we'd only
Yep.
get in on run plays. And so the highlight of our day was when Mike Shanahan or Gary Kubiak, whoever was working the projector, would rewind and show us away from the play, knocking a DB or a linebacker on the grass.
Awesome.
And it was so much fun. And I wish for this for all athletes. If you can have a teammate who you're competing against but rooting for at the same time, it's the greatest experience in sports. And that's what Rod and I have. I was as happy for him when he scored as he was for me. And it was just a great place to be. And we had so many great years working our way up from backups to starters and then winning Super Bowls. And he was the most unselfish teammate you could ever have. And he was so authentic. And it just made it so much fun to go to work every day. And so, I'll cherish those memories forever. He was a great teammate.
Yeah, you hear a lot of those stories from those Super Bowl teams there in the 90s, just like how close that team was. That kind of gets to my next question. Best team you ever played on?
Best team I ever played on? I'm still going to go with the Broncos Super Bowl 32 team. That's a tough question, though, because we won Super Bowl 33. And we had the best team in the NFL the year before when we were 14-2 and got
Yeah.
upset by Jacksonville because we had one bad game. And of course, the team I played for in San Francisco was pretty talented with, all the MVPs and Hall of
6
Famers.
touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that was the most lopsided game I ever played in. But but I'll go with the Super Bowl 32 Denver Broncos. And also, my favorite play of my career was when John took the knee at the end of Super Bowl 32 to end the game. And it was like a lifetime of work and anticipation and blood, sweat, and tears from John, but from also our team and every single Broncos fan on the planet. We finally realized what it meant to be a Super Bowl champion, and finally, got over all those previous losses. And so that moment, it was more than just a game, and it was even more than just a Super Bowl. It was the first Super Bowl. And I had heard so many stories about like kids who went to the games with their grandfather who weren't there to make it to that one because they had passed. I mean, so many stories like that. And it was just such an incredible moment. So I'm going with that team, Super Bowl 32.
That was a special team. The interesting thing is you talk about like younger NFL fans now today, like they think of John as like this Super Bowl champion, but like that wasn't the narrative around him for the majority of his career. It was that he couldn't win that big one. And then when you guys did that, I mean, it just changes, everybody's legacy, so that's what those moments are like. So yeah, that's crazy. Okay, two more for you here. What's the best lesson that you ever learned from a coach?
Best lesson I ever learned from a coach was probably a lesson about coaching rather than playing. But it's like they don't care what you know till they know that you care. And that's a pretty good lesson, because I think a lot of coaches get caught up in the X's and O's, and I'm no different, or caught up in the practice plan and the call sheet and the strategy of the game, which is so addicting and fun to be a part of. But it's really always about people. And so whether they're little league kids, high school kids, college kids, or players in the NFL, it starts with people, and it starts with them knowing that you care. And even the most competitive players who don't need to be your friend, right, want to know that you care about helping them to be the best that they can be, because that's what they want. The best, most talented, and most competitive players want you to help them become better. They need to know that you care about that at least. And so that, I think those were words of wisdom from a very good coach that I found to be true.
You ever want to coach again, Ed?
I love coaching, and I watch every play of the Commanders and the 49ers and the Dolphins and the Broncos. So I watch so much film. I get my football fix that way. It's not the exact same as coaching, but I kind of feel like a head coach with McCaffrey Brands now. I have 15 people that report to me, and we're growing a business. And I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and it also allows me to still watch film of my kids' games and the Broncos, and allows me to travel to their games and have fun, but still be a part of a team that's really working towards, it's not as defined of a Super Bowl or a championship, but we do set our daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly goals, and we celebrate our successes, and we battle through our adversity. And it's that whole, being part of something bigger than yourself thing, and working towards something together that is the thrill of sports. It's also the thrill of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then the very last one, I know I've kept you for so long here, but I've really enjoyed catching up with you, Ed. The last one, I always ask everybody who comes on some career advice for maybe a guy who played football and then they're looking to do that next thing in their life after they've hung up the cleats. You've had so much success. I mean, the media, coaching, entrepreneurial stuff. What would you tell a player who, hey, maybe they just finished their last year, maybe they're heading into their final year and they're thinking about that next step? What's some career advice you'd give them?
I'd say, do some soul searching and find out your why. Why are you doing this? Right? And if it's only about the money, you probably won't be successful. It needs to be something that is really near and dear to your heart, that you're passionate about, so that the work isn't work. It's just what you do. And then, there's so much about it. I mean, don't set your goals high. Whatever it is that you want to do, set them high. Don't sell yourself short. If people aren't laughing at your goals, you probably didn't set them high enough. Right? So have super high expectations for yourself. Understand why you're doing what you're doing, and just chase your dreams. And lastly, at some point you just have to do it. Keep moving forward. Be resilient and keep moving forward. Don't procrastinate too much. At some point, you just have to start doing it. And maybe you do learn on the run, and maybe you get better as you go. But whatever you do, don't stop moving.
Awesome. Oh, that's tremendous advice. Thank you so much, Ed. And thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed just talking football and catching up and hearing about all the things you're doing with Ed McCaffrey Brands, and also catching up with your family and everything. So congrats on all your success, and thank you so much for chatting.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Phil. Let's keep in touch, man. It was good catching up.
Yeah, most definitely. My thanks to Ed McCaffrey for spending some time here on a long conversation. I kept Ed for a very long time, so really enjoyed his insights. Awesome stories there, about making the team with the 49ers. Gosh, could you imagine just, being a part of that team, one of the best teams in NFL history, and, all the gold jackets that were out there. I mean, it's crazy to think about. And, it's interesting hearing him being a football dad nowadays. I imagine that it's really hard sitting in the stands watching your guys. And, hopefully Christian McCaffrey can come back after a injury-plagued season this year and get going. You hear Sean Payton talk about the importance of having like a joker player. There is no better joker type of player in the NFL than Christian McCaffrey. So definitely want to see him back healthy. And then also Luke there with Washington, a third-round pick last year. You're excited to see where his career can go. So, great stuff there from Ed McCaffrey. And really good stuff talking about Mike Shanahan there, hopefully making the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The Pro Football Hall of Fame and the NFL, actually, they're two separate things. So, they help each other out, but it's not the NFL Hall of Fame. So they can't really control all the guidelines there. But hopefully we see Mike Shanahan. We could do a whole episode just talking about his accolades and why he deserves to be there in Canton. And he'll get there. It's just you hope that, like I mentioned with Ed there, that he gets there with enough time to really enjoy it and be able to be celebrated. So no bourbon review since our conversation was long there, but we'll be back either next week or the week after that with another conversation, and I'll do a bourbon review then. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Ed McCaffrey, one of my all-time favorite guys, and I'd been trying to get him booked here for a long time, so happy that he was able to come on, and hopefully if there's some other Broncos legends like him that you want to hear more about their career or what happened along their journey, let me know. Just leave a comment and let me know what players you want to see come on the program, and then we'll try and make that happen. So really enjoy just catching up with these guys, hearing about their career, and then also getting their thoughts on this year's Broncos team. So, the offseason fully underway here. The Combine coming up soon, so we'll be sure to do some Combine preview talk coming up here pretty soon. So, that is going to do it. If you liked the episode, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're continuing to grow this thing, and we'll see what happens here in the off season. In what direction we end up going here with everything. So, if you like it, please like and subscribe. Again, my thanks to Ed McCaffrey for coming on. That's going to do it for us. I'm your host, Phil Milani.